Welcome to our time. Our guest in this episode, let me tell you about him. He was once an Australian men's champion ice skater. He's a show producer, Actors Inc. and Essential Talent Director, a very respected ice skating coach, the manager of the Ice Arena, and now also president of the Australian Professional Skaters Association, who clearly has very little sleep, as recently he's been from one side of the globe to the other. Which time zone are you in today, Richard Laidlaw?
I have no idea. How are you? That's quite an impressive introduction.
And there's a few things I didn't say.
Oh, God.
Now, you've been on the show before, but usually talking about some of your charges.
That's correct,
some of the
yes.
kids that you've coached.
Yep.
And you've just recently had great success with them in Sydney.
In Sydney, yes, I did actually at the Hollands Trophy. Came out with a few winners, which was pretty good.
It's hard to keep up with all the different ice skating competitions, both around Australia and, of course, around the world. How does it, the ice skating coaching and the competitions that the skaters go to, how does it work? I'll start you off and take over because my limited knowledge is limited.
Okay.
So they start off in a state competition?
Yes. So first of all, they start in a club competition.
Oh, okay.
That then goes to the state competition, state championships, and then they go to the national championships. All the way along, they have to be achieving the greatest scores to be able to be ranked higher than one another, and it's the highest ranked that get to go to the international competitions.
And from the international competitions?
Well, they build their way up in the different levels of international competition so that eventually they win a spot to get to the Olympics.
And that would, of course, be Winter Olympics, which is in a couple of years' time.
And that's the ultimate.
So ice skating is more or less, in figure skating, it's more or less become more of a sport than a entertainment?
Well, it started out as a sport. It is a sport, but they are trying to develop it to make it more of a entertainment or more about the art of skating now. They're bringing it back. Originally it started with just doing school figures, which were patterns on the ice.
Like figure eights and things.
Figure eights, yeah. And then they turned it into something like an art where they'd dance and they'd have couples doing the skaters waltz and things like that. That was at the turn of the century. Since then, it became a sport.
Do you remember that then?
No, I don't.
Well, we've had a turn of the century, the year 2000.
Oh, yeah, actually, you're right.
Which century are we talking?
Which century? I was talking the 1900s.
See, you were around in the turn of the century.
I haven't come through to the 2000s yet. That's how it sort of started out, and then it turned into a sport where they're doing all these jumps, and now they're doing triples and quads, and they're talking about even doing quins, which that means that's 5 rotations in the air, which is pretty amazing.
They need a skyhook for that, surely.
Well, you need to be very, very strong. And in fact, they're starting to do studies now, and it's becoming a concern, is that these kids that do those sorts of jumps, they might do anywhere between 60 to 100 of those jumps a day. And if they're doing multi-rotations in the air, so they're doing 4 or 5 rotations in the air on each one of those jumps, they're looking at what sort of damage or effect that it has on the brain, because that floats.
Turning around.
Yeah, because it floats in fluid in the head.
Yes.
So it'd be knocking the sides of your skull. So they're looking at...
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about brain injuries, and in fact that wasn't mentioned, but that's a valid point.
But it is a valid point. So they're really looking into that now.
Is it this need in our society to achieve absolute perfection? Is there such a thing, really?
I don't know. I think it's all about competition. Everybody wants to be better than the next.
Right.
And to do that, they have to reach that perfection. When it's perfection perfect? I don't think it could ever be perfect.
No, nothing really can be.
No.
You just keep achieving to the next level that you're
These
humanly
people
able.
these kids that come in and they see me every morning. They're there every morning.
Yes, you start
they train.
at what time?
Oh, about 5:15 of the morning. So they come in every morning. They train for a couple of hours.
Just why? It's a good point as to why do they come in that early?
because that's the ice time that nobody wants.
Yes.
Public don't want that.
Yeah, so the people that really want to achieve really have to. But
Yes.
it's the same for swimmers. They all start in the pool.
Absolutely, yeah,
crack of
early
dawn.
in the morning.
It's not just them, it's the parents that have to bring them.
And the parents. So
And the coaches that have to get up.
I always say extraordinary people do extraordinary things, and that's exactly what these ice skaters do.
The big issue, though, there's been a bit of flack lately with people complaining.
Yep.
The students complaining that their coaches are pushing them too hard. Now, I can say, and as you know, I worked with probably two of the greatest ice skaters in the world,
Yep.
Torvill and Dean. Their day was quite extraordinary because we'd start with stretch classes, then they'd go down to the ice and they would rehearse every single number that they did in the show that night. And then they'd stop for a quick meal, then we'd go back again. So it was like a 10 o'clock start, 1 o'clock we'd probably stop for lunch, then down to the ice for 4 hours, then a quick meal, then back on the ice for an hour before the audience came in. And they did that every single day.
Yep.
And that's why they were topped.
And that's why they were champions, yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's sort of like the training regime of any champion skater. They're absolutely self-disciplined and they drive themselves. But the coach also has to help. It's a team thing. So
Yes,
nobody does it by themselves.
No,
and
there's two people out
Jane
there.
and Chris, they had each other to drive them, but they also had a
Coaches,
coach
yeah.
behind them.
They had a coach for most of their Olympic, up to the Olympics. Yeah.
So the coaches have to push in. You develop this bond with the student at that level. You go through so many things together.
You become a parent for what you're training them for.
A parent, a brother, a friend. It's it's a very unique sort of relationship.
I guess. But it's not just obviously in ice skating, it's in everything.
As a coach, I'm talking in general, with a coach with any elite level student. In figure skating, it's a one-on-one situation. I dare say it would be different if you're working with a team. But in a one-on-one, especially when you go through so many years together, you go through the ups and the downs, and all athletes hit a couple of down points in their carear. And
Is that because of their expectation for themselves?
Absolutely.
That they feel it's going to be easier than what it actually is?
No, I think that it's their fear of failure. So they have this...
the competitive nature.
The fear of the competitive nature. So as soon as things start going wrong, they lose their confidence and they hit rock bottom. And I should be. They have this expectation of themselves being much higher or where they should be, and when they're not achieving that, they hit some pretty low spots. And it takes a lot as a coach to lift them out of that. So you sort of have to navigate this path like this.
Their emotions, I suppose.
Their emotions, and you develop quite a close bond over that period of time.
Well, when did you start? Well, how did you start to skate?
I went with the Boy Scouts to the Hindley Street ice rink.
Okay, which was a tiny rink.
Tiny little rink it was, yeah. And loved it, and begged my parents to take me again. So I started going at the Hindley Street rink, and then they built a brand new rink, which was out in the direction of my house, which is at Paynham, and I really got cracking on the lessons at that time, and that's what
How
really...
old were you then?
Ooh, 12, 13, 12.
Oh, 3 years ago.
Yeah, I wish.
But then you left home, well, you left school and home at quite an early age.
Yeah, it's 13.
And went...
And I went and trained in Sydney for the next few years with who was the top coach in Australia, Belinda Noonan, or Belinda Coulthard back then.
Yes. Well, Belinda was on the show
she was,
6 months
that's
ago.
right. She was the one of the directors of OWI, so she...
What's IWI?
Olympic Winter Institute. So she oversaw the careers of a lot of the figure skaters and their funding from OWI to get them to the Olympics.
Yes, she looked upon you very fondly, I think.
That's good.
But not only that, she was training you, but you used to do the shows with her.
That's right,
in the leagues clubs.
Yeah, she used to have a little area, a little rink, and do these amazing shows.
About 7 metres square or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And you'd have to carry the pipes.
That's right.
And all that, because
every
obviously
weekend.
there's not ice there already. No. You've got to make it.
Every weekend we had to carry the pipes up and lay them out, and I'd connect it all up to the chillers and make ice. And then I kept doing it into my adult life.
Yes, I know. You're still doing it because you've got tanks all over the place. What do you think are the life benefits of being this competitive for the kids that actually do it?
So there's a lot of really good things I think about kids getting involved in a sport or a solid interest through their transition into teens and becoming young adults, because it keeps that strong interest and focus. So if they get bored, I think they can go and get a little wayward. So this interest drives them through. But I also think with figure skating, it's goal based. So you learn to do your single jumps, and then you learn those jumps as doubles, and then you learn the next lot of jumps as triples, and then you go to quads, and you learn a little spin, and then it gets bigger and bigger and more difficult. So there's all these goals along the way. So they learn to set goals and achieve them, set goals and achieve them. So I think that's a really good life skill.
Well, it is. That's true. And we're setting a goal.
We are,
but we'll be back after this short break. And our goal is to return. Richard Laidlaw is our guest in this episode. We're talking about ice skating.
That's right.
Okay, so with you, you went on, because of Belinda, who was your coach, you went on to not only become a champion, a men's champion, but you then started working with her as a skater in her ice shows.
Skater, and then did a couple of ice shows. One of them toured with you around Australia in a circus tent.
We certainly did that, but it was more than that, because not only on ice but also on stage. You then started producing shows generally.
That's right, yeah.
Do you think that the discipline that you learnt from people like Belinda and the competition that you did, is that the thing that made you a show producer, do you think, and performer for that matter, off ice as well?
I always wanted to be a performer. I never really wanted to be a champion skater. I always wanted to be in the shows. Right. So that's what drove me.
You just like dressing up, let's be honest.
I always wanted to be in the shows.
And learning to fire eat.
And fire eat, yes.
Fire on ice.
Yes, that's right.
Did you ever do a show called Fire on Ice?
No, but I should.
You should.
That's a good name for one.
I think it's been done already.
Yeah, but I think I was always driven to become a performer of some sort. I always wanted to be in the show business, and skating was just a means to sort of get me there and got me into doing ice shows and that. So. And then went on to other stuff just through necessity, I think.
Well, your businesses as well. I mean, you're not only a coach, but you also run quite a big talent agency and classes for actors.
All quite by accident, really. It was only through returning to Australia or deciding I didn't want to go overseas anymore, and how can I survive and still perform?
Well, actually, that's a good point. You were sending shows of mostly dancer shows, but all sorts of shows overseas
Magic
for many years.
Circus, yeah. So, and I wanted to stay home. I didn't want to keep travelling all the time. So it was only natural to start a business that produced those shows. So, and so it's the path of life has sort of gone all over the place.
Isn't it? You have two daughters. Are they interested in ice skating?
Not at all. They hate the skating.
Isn't it a shame?
It takes me away from them for too often.
Right, but isn't that a shame? Because that's so often what happens.
Yes, I'd love for them to be skating, because I'd spend a lot more time with them, but they're involved in dance and they compete in dance. They do all that sort of stuff. Exactly what I did in ice, they did in dance.
They just never wanted to live in the fridge.
No.
It's pretty.
It was 4 degrees in there this morning. It was pretty cold.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, so.
Oh dear. The ice skating thing, though, could you describe what the feeling is of skating? Because it's quite a unique feeling.
So powerful gliding across the ice. It's actually, you know what, I actually don't know. I've never ever thought about it. It's power and effortlessness.
Effortlessness.
So, yeah, I love
Like you're flying.
belting. I love belting around the rink really, really
Oh no,
fast.
you love going like this and getting ice all
Spraying
over
up
the people
snow,
in the front.
I just
Banging your
love the
foot.
power that comes from, you know, how you can be crossing over and getting this wonderful power and throw yourself into a spin and feeling those G forces that you feel, that centrifugal forces. You jump up in the air or you do a spin on the ice.
Right, but your skating life has been a bit challenged.
Because I got many ears disease.
Just explain what that is.
Oh, something terrible, I've got to tell you. It just came on one day without any warning. I started feeling a bit dizzy and thinking, oh, that's a bit weird. I feel like I'm a bit drunk or something. And it sort of came and went a few times. And then one day it hit so bad the world started spinning violently. I dropped to the ground and was vomiting violently. And that lasted for about a week. I couldn't move in bed for a week. And with that came instant loss of hearing in my right ear. So I have very, very little hearing in that ear now. And takes about, well, it took about a month the first time to get over it, to start having balance again.
And to get diagnosed too, I guess.
I got diagnosed at that time. I had CT scans and all that to make sure there wasn't something more sinister happening.
There was something there though.
What?
In there.
In there, yeah, there was a brain.
Something. Okay.
Yes.
Just to be sure.
And then I didn't have it actually took my confidence away for a brief time, because I thought, I'm never going to be able to travel again. I'm not going to be able to go anywhere, because it literally comes on like that. I'm dropped to the ground. I can't stand up. And then it went away, and it hasn't come, and it just came again about 3 months ago. I had another attack.
You wear a hearing aid in this ear?
Yeah, this ear here.
And does that really help?
It does help a little bit, but not a lot. But
see, I'd never heard of Meniere's disease before, and now I've heard of several people that have got it, and it's sort of an unknown thing.
Well, it is. It can be debilitating, I think. If you let it, it can really get on top of you.
I imagine it would. So you obviously keep pushing yourself, though.
Well, I'm not giving into it, but when I'm really having a bad attack, I can't do anything. I just have to lay in bed and wait for it to pass. I can't open my eyes. I can't move. And even now, it's taking a long time. So it's where the canals in your inner ear fill up with fluid, and it's where your balance is. So on the ice, I'm struggling every day. I've struggled at the moment.
But you still do it?
Well, I still do it, but I can't skate like I used to, and that's, to me, I feel like I'm an 80-year-old man out there on the ice,
you are.
And that's that. No, I'm not. But I don't want, I'm missing the feeling that feeling that we were talking about, skating around the rink at full speed. I have to go at grandpa speed at the moment.
But in the last 6 months, where have you been in the world?
In the last 6 months, okay.
You can go backwards if you like.
I think I've been in America. I've been in Thailand a couple of times. I've been in America. I've been in Mexico. Where else have I been? Somewhere
Melbourne,
else.
Sydney.
Oh, Melbourne and Sydney, Perth. All for competitions.
It's no secret we've been friends for a very long time, so we're being very polite with each other, because we'd usually be rubbishing each other. But your determination to achieve, you genuinely are a high achiever. Do you think the high achieving in your life has brought on perhaps the Meniere's disease, because you won't give in? I'm being serious for a change.
No, true. I'm trying to work out whether stress, it has got something to do with stress, because at the beginning of the year, when this one sort of came on, was right in the time where I'd taken on the rink, running the rink. And then I was putting together a great big conference for the Professional Skaters Association of Australia. And that's like a $120,000 event, and I was almost doing it single-handedly. I want to make sure I got it right. So I had this Meniere's attack then, and now that's finished. The conference finished last week. I feel a great sense of relief, and perhaps feeling better than I have for the last month or so.
Well, I asked that question because, as we were talking about before, the pressure that we put upon ourselves to achieve, is there a long-term, does it have a long-term health effect? Because this is being discussed, obviously, about brain injury that we mentioned briefly, particularly with sports players, both men and women, who, whatever it is in their sport, they either, bang into each other or fall on the ground. You've just been talking about spinning and, what happens with the revolutions with your brain.
Well, I do think that, with the stress part of it, I don't know, is there a good stress and a bad stress? Is there such a thing?
Yes, well, stress is just stress, isn't it?
I think I don't know, if it's stress that I don't know.
It's an interesting topic to discuss because it's now very popular in common conversation with a few, not just ice skaters, but people, swimmers and so on, complaining that their coaches are pushing them too hard. It's like, how hard do you need to push somebody to achieve Olympic goals? That's the real question.
With my students, I ask them, what do they want to achieve?
Yep.
Where do they want to go? Because if they want to go there, I'll help them get there.
Yep.
And that does involve a lot of pushing.
Yep.
And I think what you may consider as being acceptable level of pushing and what I consider to be an acceptable level of pushing, or how hard I think somebody needs to be pushed to get to where they need to go, could be two different things.
Quite.
So I'm the expert.
But actually, you've made a good point. You asked the question. So how far do you want to go?
Yeah.
How much time do you want to spend? How much of your life do you want to give up in, like, going to the birthday parties of friends, having Saturday nights out, all that stuff? How much do you want to reach that end goal if it's the Olympics?
Well, the kids that want to get there, they want to push themselves. Sometimes they don't, when they're not feeling it, you have to push them through it. So that's what other people who don't really understand the journey see, and they're the ones that normally make the complaints about the coaches pushing too hard.
Yes, you just made the point. It's the journey thing, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's a huge journey, and these are elite athletes that I'm training, and they are doing extraordinary things. So to do that, they have to do things out of the ordinary. And, of course, if it was outside of being reasonable, they'd say, stop, and I don't want you to be my coach anymore. Yeah. This is too hard.
Well,
I'm going to find...
Same for the coach, you're not trying hard enough, I don't want to do this
And
anymore.
there are some athletes or skaters who don't make it and end up with sour grapes and resentful of those who have gone on to make it, including the coaches, and sometimes get nasty and make complaints.
We're all human, and it's human nature. And speaking of human nature, back in a tick. Our guest has been Richard Laidlaw, ice skating impresario. Or not
Impresario?
Only, yes, there's one. Well, you've been all of those things, show, impresario, whatever else.
I can't believe that I have to come here on your show to actually be able to catch up with you these days. It's getting so hard to catch up.
Well, it's just useful that you're in town at this time. To be honest.
I'm annoyed I missed out on your 600th show. Congratulations, by the way. That's a fantastic milestone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. See, I don't know that I've been particularly focused on anything, but one of the things that I think is really achievable in life is when you're offered something, say yes, because you never know where it's going to lead.
Yes. That's true. You never know where it is going to lead, and that's what's happened with me. Mind you, I've got a bit of a habit of promising things that I don't have, as you would know.
Yes. I do believe over the years, particularly to the Asian countries, when you initially started going, how old were you? 18 or something?
Something like that, yeah, 18.
And your mum would go with you and they'd address the older woman in the room and she'd say, no, don't talk to me, it's him, it's him.
Yeah, and they'd ask me if I got a circus show with a trapeze. I'd go, yeah, sure, I got one of those.
Oh, yes.
Then I'd have to come back and quickly find one.
I remember many nights of you sewing, planning, doing music, rehearsing, just amazing. Yeah. But you see, you know, you've achieved this level now of also managing a rink, of all those other things, of managing a rink that has actually been ailing quite badly and only has a short time to live, so
That's true. I've come back in and got it up and running, and it's doing quite well at the moment.
And it's what you need to do next with your life, I guess.
Oh, no, build a rink, I guess. I don't know.
You see, this is the achievement thing. If you set your mind to achieve something, as you've done right through your life, as I said before, I've known you for a long time, since you were 14, I think.
Yeah, 14.
And it's been lovely to be able to talk like this with you. So I hope you've enjoyed sharing this time that two friends have had together talking about subjects that we both love, I suppose.
That's true, yep.
So until next time on Our Time, achieve, 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 and keep yourself nice while doing it. And we'll see you next time. Bye.